Hello guys, this is Paul McWhorter with TopTechBoy.com, and we're here today with episode number 57 in our incredible new tutorial series where you're learning how to think like an engineer using the Arduino Uno R4 Wi-Fi. What I will need you to do is pour yourself a nice tall glass of ice cold coffee. That would be straight up black coffee, poured over ice, no sugar, no sweeteners, none needed. And as you're pouring your coffee, as always, I want to give a shout out to our friends over at Sunfounder. Sunfounder is actually sponsoring this most excellent series of video lessons. And in this class, we will be using the Sunfounder Elite Explorer Kit. Now, hopefully most of you guys already have your gear, but if you don't, take a look down in the description. There is a link over to Amazon, and you can hop on over there and pick your kit up. And believe me, your life and my life are going to be a whole lot easier if we are working on identical hardware. But enough of this shameless self-promotion. Let's talk about what I am going to teach you today. And this is a follow-on from what I taught you in lesson number 56, and it's actually the solution to the homework assignment that I gave you in lesson number 56, which was to create a portable Arduino altimeter. And so what I have to ask is, how many of you were successful? If you were able to get this bad boy running, leave a comment down below. I am legend. Double chest bump. And if you were not successful, leave a comment down below. I folded up like a cheap Walmart lawn chair, but hopefully you guys got it, because really it's just bringing together a lot of the little pieces that I've taught in the last few lessons. But if you had trouble with it, never fear. I'm going to go through with you today my solution. Okay, so what was the homework assignment? The homework assignment was for me to, first of all, get out of your way. And then your homework assignment was to build something like this, which is a portable altimeter. And what you can see is we have the power module from the Sunfounder kit hooked up to our breadboard, our breadboard power module hooked up. We have the SSD1306 OLED display. We have the most excellent GY87 10-axis sensor system, which one of the 10 devices it has on it is a BMP 180 pressure sensor, which is what we will be featuring in today's lesson. Guys, if you don't have this component, well, you should have bought the kit. But seriously, this is really just using the BMP 180 off of this. And so if you just have a BMP 180 and don't have this whole module, most everything is going to work the same. So that will work out okay. We've got our green for go button, and then we have our Arduino. Now, what the idea was that you were this screen was to prompt you, and we got to go untethered. So we got to be willing to take this cable off and disconnect from the computer and have this thing go with us, like in the car or wherever we want to go, that this thing will measure height or this thing will measure altitude for us. And so what it needs to do is that when you get started and turn the thing on, it needs to prompt you. It needs to prompt you to put the device at the base location, right? We got to measure that base pressure. If you remember that from lesson number, what was that? Lesson number 55 and 56, we kind of learned about using the pressure sensor. And so you've got to prompt the user to put this at the base location, and then you press this button, and that will then record your base pressure. And then it's just going to go and it's going to be measuring pressure and calculating altitude or calculating height above that base position and displaying the results on the SSD1306 OLED. Now, if you haven't used one of these OLEDs before, never fear. I went over it exhaustively, where you will be an expert if you just go back and look at lesson number 53. So if in any of this stuff I'm going a little bit fast, you can go back and kind of catch up if you're confused by anything on those earlier lessons. But that's what the project is supposed to do. Now, as you walk around, you'll just look at this little OLED screen and it will be showing you what your height is above or below the base position where you started your program. Okay, hope that sounds good. So I guess I should start by kind of talking to you about getting this thing wired up. There's a lot of wires here, but it's really pretty simple. And so we're going to start by looking at our power bank here. And what I want you to see is you can look at this little plus here and this little plus here. And so when you're plugged in this way, this is going to be a power rail, and then this is going to be a power rail. And then if you look at this little negative here, this negative and this negative, that's going to tell you that this is going to be your ground rail, and this is going to be your ground rail. Now, the cool thing is those two grounds are connected together, so you don't have to jumper your two ground rails together. So that's what we got to start with. We got to have this plugged in. And then what we're going to do is, if I'm going to want to go untethered, I cannot plug this into the computer for power. So I am going to power my Arduino from this breadboard power bank. How do I do that? Well, I come over here and I grab that power rail and I come up and I take it to VN. And that will power your Arduino where you don't have to fool with this plug over here. So now we've got power. If we've got power, we're also going to need what? We're going to take a ground and we're going to connect to that ground rail. Now, if I just turn this power bank on, my Arduino is going to be powered up. But I got to caution you, you don't want to be powering the Arduino from two different places. And what you got to see is to download the code. To download the code, we are going to have to put our cable in here to download the code. And that is going to be powering up the Arduino. So before I plug that USB cable in to power up the Arduino, I want to turn this off. And then it's going to power up the Arduino from the USB. It's going to download the code. I'm going to take then the cable off. And then after I take the cable off, then I can come over and turn the power bank on. Now, I don't know for sure that it's a problem because I don't know exactly the details of how all these pins are connected together. But in general, you want to make sure that you never connect two power supply voltages up in parallel together. And since I don't know this, the safest thing is to either power your Arduino from the USB cable or from the VN, but don't try to set those up at the same time with two different voltage supplies. Okay, hope that makes sense. Now, we have a very simple go button here. A very simple go button. And what we have is we have one leg of the go button connected to the ground rail, and we have the other leg of the go button connected to GPIO pin 2, our digital pin 2. And that's going to allow us to read that button being pushed. Okay, so now we know about the button push. Now, we have two components, the BMP 180, which for us is sitting on the GY87 module, and then we have the SSD1306 OLED, and those are SCL SDA. Those are I2C components. But what you see over here is you only have one SCL and you only have one SDA. Never fear. I2C is a bus, so you can daisy chain your I2C components together as long as they don't have the same address. And we talked about the addresses in the earlier videos, so I'm not going to go over that again. But what I want you to see is if we start over here at the OLED, you take the SDA of the OLED, you connect it to the SDA of the BMP180 or the GY87, and then you take that SDA and you run it over to the SDA of the Arduino. Similarly, you take SCL of the, sometimes it says SCL, sometimes it says SCK, but the SCL, SCK, you want to take that from the OLED, jumper it over to the GY87, and from there, then you want to take it up to SCL. So it's like SCL, 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 it's SDA, SDA, SDA. So that's pretty simple. Then I have both of these, the ground connected to the ground, the power rail connected to 5 volts, the 5 volts to 5 volts here, the ground to ground, and then over here we have again power to power and ground to ground, and at that point you have this thing hooked up. So it's a little bit tedious. It looks a lot neater here. It looks a lot neater here in the schematic than it does here in real life. But if you're just a little bit careful and patient, you can get that thing hooked up. Okay, so that is what it is going to look like. And now I think pretty much we're ready to jump in and start trying to code this thing. And so let's see. I don't want to code this thing completely from scratch. And so let's go in and let's start where we left off last week, okay? Because we had a pretty dandy little program last week that would measure height. So let's go in and get that. So you will need to come over here to the most excellent www.toptechboy.com. You will want to use this happy little search tool here, and you'll want to search on something like measure altitude with an Arduino project, and then you'll come to this lesson. And this was for the simpler, just using the GY87, but this code will get us started with that. So click on the two little page icons there. And it says copy to clipboard. Then we're going to come over here and I'm going to do a Control A and a Control V. And now I have the software from last week that basically sets up the BMP 180, and then it comes down, and then what it does is it measures a base pressure, and then it measures pressure, 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 pressure. And that pressure, 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 pressure will be converted into height, 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 okay? So let's see if this will work from last week. So I am unplugging from the power module. I am plugging into the Arduino. You see, if I had someone in the control room and I wasn't a one-man show here, the guy in the control room could have shown you that I have now moved this over here. And as you note, this is turned off. Okay, so right now, really all I can do is just download the code, right? I can download the code there, but I can't really run the other things. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come back over here to the code view, and I am going to download the code just to make sure that the universe is in proper working order. Okay. And it looks like it is downloading. I think this is going to work. Okay, looking good, looking good. Okay, so now what I am going to do is I am going to go to my serial monitor, and then I'm going to press the reset button on the Arduino. It's the button on the Arduino I'm going to press. And then it comes in, it says it found the BMP 180 and it connected to it. Then it says place on the base. Okay, the base is my desktop here. Place on the base and then type go. So then I am going to type go like that. And now I'm going to come over to the serial plotter. The plotter, which is not cooperating with me right now. Okay, there it is. Now you can see it went up to another screen. Okay, now what do we see here? We see the raw height data in green that's coming in, going up and down. Then we pass it through our low pass filter, and that is smoothed out. And we talked about last week that we're measuring the weight of air between the surface of the sensor and space. So we're measuring like 200 miles of air, and we're looking at a foot or two change in 200 miles of air. Well, you can see it's coming in at about -1 foot to where at base it should be 0. But if I get this now and I go up, you can see the orange line, the filtered line going up. And then if I go down, you can see it going down. So something like now it's at -3 feet, and then it goes up to +2 feet, and you can see that this is measuring height. Now, what is the problem? The problem is this cable. You would be hard-pressed to use this as an altimeter in your car or something else if you've got to be tethered back to the mothership of your desktop computer. Now, what we do like is this is really great for debugging, because you see we got our low pass filter dialed in and we were able to get all that stuff working. But now what we have to do is we have to get rid of the cable. But basically the program is working as we would hope. Okay, so now what do we do here? Well, this was importing the library. For that to work, you've got to install the library. If you want to know how to install the library, go back and watch lesson number 55, or you can probably just search on that Adafruit library, and you likely are going to find it over here in with this little library tool here. Okay. Then I create my pressure sensor object, and then I have a couple of Boolean variables, true or false, to keep track of what's going on. Now, what we did was we applied we start by measuring the pressure at a given location. That will be our base pressure, and all height measurements will be relative to where that base pressure was made. And so if I made my base pressure measurement on my desktop, the height of my desktop becomes 0. If I go above it, it's going to be a positive number. If I go below it, it's going to be a negative number. But my base height, 0, is where I measured my base pressure. Then we go in, we get the thing hooked up. I've done a couple of lessons on that. And then I'll just show you that here we measure the height using our find height function. Our find height function is down here, where we have a bunch of physical parameters, and then we read a pressure, and then from that pressure we calculate a height, and then we convert that height to feet from meters, and then we return that up here. Okay, so that is our instantaneous height measure. But to get rid of all that noise in our height measurement and calculation, we do a low pass filter, and we give 95% weight to the existing location, and then we give 5% weight to the new reading, and then that smooths out all of that nonsense going up and down, and then we print that all out. So that's all very good. But now if we're going to go mobile, we're going to need to what? We're going to need to get our go button going, and we're going to need to get our little OLED display working. So in order to do that, you need to come up here, get my cursor up there. Okay, so we're going to need some other libraries that little OLED is going to want you to include spi.h, like that. He's going to want you to include the wire library, wire.h. Okay. He is going to want you to include the graphics library, which is Adafruit _GFX. Of course, these have to be installed, and I showed you how to do that in lesson number 53. Okay, if you guys are adept, you know you can go find these on your own, or you can watch me do it in that one. Okay, we're also going to include the Adafruit underscore SSD1306 display.h, like that. Does that look good? Okay, I think we have our libraries, and I'm going to go ahead and run it just to make sure that it finds those libraries and everything is okay. Adafruit. No such file or directory. Okay, so we need to go in and install those things again. I think I probably took them out so I could show you how to put them back in. So I am going to go add Adafruit, and then I am going to look for that SSD 1306, like that. And then you can see here the Adafruit 1306. And you know, I find that to install the libraries, I need to unplug my Arduino for some reason. I don't know if other people have noticed that. But you notice I am installing library 2.5.13. When you take this lesson, there might be more recent ones. It might be safer to use exactly the one that I'm using here. Okay, so that one is already installed. Okay, so it looked like I had installed that one already. And so then what I'm going to need to do is, it looks like, oh, maybe I did install these already. You know what I didn't put? I didn't put the .h. Okay, anyway, I'll help you with the installation. Adafruit GFX, like that. Adafruit GFX library. Okay, you can see that I'm running 1.11.11, and then this BMP 085. You should have that. You should have that from last week. But Adafruit, and then that is BMP. Okay, and let's see, BMP 085 right here. Okay, BMP 085. Even though our sensor is, so anyway, that's the one that you want to load in right there. Okay, so now those are done. Those are all included. And now this thing should run because I got rid of my typo. But I took a second just to hook our brothers and sisters up there with a little help getting those libraries in. Okay, what is the status one? Include. It is very important you don't include as much as you would like to, you include. Now let's make sure all that's working. Okay, and I need to plug this back in. But really I'm just looking to see if it's going to compile. Okay, that looks good, and I don't think it's going to do anything right now because I haven't really put anything in there. I'm just trying to get that display set up. Okay, so now what we do is we have the we create our barometric pressure object, BP, we're going to call it, from the BMP 085 library. Okay, so that's good. And then what we're going to need to do is we've got that created. And then what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to go in and we're going to need to set up that button pin. So I'm going to say int but pin. And where did we connect that? That was pin 2, right? And then if we're going to have a but pin, we're going to need to read from it. So we'll call that but val. And we have this set up as a pull-up resistor, and so in the default state, it's going to be reading a 1. When you press the button down, you'll read a 0. So we're going to go ahead and set that to 1 even before the program runs, just so that we have initialized it. And then if we're looking for a toggle, we need to keep track of the present location of the button, but val, and then we're also going to need what the but val was the last time through the loop. So that was but val old, like that. And that we're also going to set to 1 to initialize it, okay? And then once you start pressing the button, you'll be getting the reading from the button, but you want to give it a value before you start there, okay? So we've got that going now. Okay, now what do we need? We're going to need base pressure. Okay, that's good. We are going to need height. That's good. And we're going to need height now. That's good. Now, when I get this thing going, let's leave it there for now. Okay, let's leave it there for now. And then we'll start making it more snazzy as we go. But for right now, we're just going to measure the height, okay? And we will apply the low-pass filter, okay? We will apply the low-pass filter, all right? And then we'll get a little more snazzy as we go. Now we need to start setting up that OLED screen. So I need to tell it that the screen width is equal to 128 pixels. And then the int screen height is really hard to spell, isn't it? Height, like that. That's a tough one. 64 pixels. So 128 pixels wide, 64 pixels high. Then this silly little OLED needs to know where the reset pin is. But our reset pin that came with the kit, it doesn't have a reset pin, so that needs to be set to -1. Don't believe me? Try it without putting that in -1. Now we need to define what the screen address is. And for the one that came with the kit, it's 0x3C. And if for some reason yours doesn't find your screen, that would mean that your screen has a different address. And I show you how to deal with that if you have that problem in lesson number 53. But it should be 3C. If there's a problem, I show you how you can scan for it and find it in lesson 53. Okay, now this is kind of a setting things up that we sort of hate. Add fruit underscore SSD1306. That would be the library. And then what are we going to call our display? I'm going to call my display OLED. And then I need to send it, when I set it up, the screen width that we just gave it. And then the screen height. Is that right? Heigth. Why is it that I have so much trouble? Height. Height. You see, because it's like you say height, the. So I want to put the on there, not gahut. Screen high gahut. You see, I want to put it th, the, but it's not. It's gth. Height. Or did I misspell that whole thing? Height. I think I spelled it right. Okay. I digress, as I am prone to do. Okay, now we got to pass it the wire library, and we do that with a peculiar and then wire. Okay. And then we got to send it the OLED reset pin, which we just set up like that. Okay. Now I'm going to run this just to make sure that I haven't made any more errors there. I like to run it as I go because then it makes it a lot easier to debug without having these compounding errors. That's looking good, looking good. Okay, it looks like all that went in without an error. At least I didn't see an error. Okay, now we got the serial.begin. That's good. Now we got to set up that pin mode on our butt pin. So I'm going to say pin mode, and then what pin? The butt pin. And then we've got to remember that it's an input, but even more important than that, we've got to activate the pull-up resistor. So you got to do your pull-up there so that we can get that to work without having to put an external pull-up resistor in there. Okay, I think this would be an excellent place to put a little bit of a delay in 250. Sometimes if you're working like with these different things, it's good to have just a little bit of a delay in there. Now, we're going to go ahead and this sets up and activates. It begins, what does it begin? It begins our BMP. It begins our BMP 180, okay? Pressure sensor, which is on the GY87 module, okay? I think that's good. Now, we're still in the void setup, right? This ends the void setup. So right here, we are still in the void setup. So we need to go ahead and activate that OLED. So OLED, that's our object that we created, dot begin. And then this is really got to do it perfectly. SSD1306 underscore SWITCH switch cap VCC, like that, okay? Switch cap VCC. Then we've got to give it the screen underscore address. Screen address. Let's make sure screen address. Let's come up here, and yeah, we defined screen address, so that should all be copacetic. And now, who is our friend? Our friend is the semicolon. All right, so we got that done. Now, because I don't know who has been playing with the OLED before this program was put in, but you want to make sure that you just start by clearing the display because you don't know what somebody might be displaying on there. So let's start by clearing the display. Now remember, this doesn't actually clear the display. This clears the memory buffer that's going to be displayed on the display, but we want to make sure that we get whatever is in there out of there. Okay, so how do we do that? That is pretty straightforward. OLED dot clear display, open close, like that. Okay, now we're going to do an OLED dot set cursor, and I'm going to put it on row 0, pixel 0, and then in the X I'm going to put it scooted over by 12. Okay, so no, I think that's to the left and down 12. It's X and Y. So X is this way, Y is this way. So this is just scooting it down a little bit so it's not just sitting there up at the top, the cursor. Okay, at the very corner. Now we're going to do an OLED dot set text color, and we're going to set it to white, all uppercase. Now understand, white doesn't mean white. White means on. So if you have a blue LED, it's going to turn it blue. If you have a yellow LED, it's going to turn it yellow. Okay, so that is just that's just kind of the on color. Okay, so we make it white. Now my OLED dot set text size, we're going to set it to 1. So that's a small font because you don't have much room on that display. You don't have much room on that display. So you kind of don't want to use a big font unless you have to. All right. So now we need to prompt the user. Like the first time in the void setup, we got to prompt the user to put this thing at the base. Do we want to do that here? Yeah, let's go ahead and do it here. All right, we're going to go ahead and do it here. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say OLED dot println, and then I'm going to say place the deluxe. I think marketing is important, so I don't think I'm overstating it to say that this is a deluxe OLED dot println. Our deluxe, what is our product called? the height-o-matic. The height-o-matic at OLED.println. Where do we want them to put it? At the base location. And OLED.println. Guys, this library works a lot better than the one for the Pico for the OLED. There, you're like having to put everything. This is just your good old friend print and print line. Okay, then what do we want to do? Press go. After you've done that other stuff, put it at the base location and press go. And then we're going to put an empty line there. Or no, I'm sorry, we're going to then display what it is that we just put in the buffer. So all that stuff that we just printed, it doesn't show up till you display. Okay, let's run this and see what happens. Okay. That's looking pretty good. What is this token business? Where did I forget my semicolon? Did you guys see it? Where did I forget my semicolon? This IDE, it is really hard to see where the problem is. Did I miss a parenthesis? Screen address. Where was screen address? You know what? I think that screen address, that define, is one of those peculiar ones that actually doesn't want a semicolon. It's never happy. Either you put one where it doesn't want it, or you forget to put it where it needs it. Okay, let's come over here and let's look at this. And boom, look at that. Please place the deluxe height-o-matic at the base location and press go. I'm having trouble seeing it on the screen, so I'm going to look at it and make sure. Yeah, place the deluxe height-o-matic at base location and press go. Okay, what is the incredibly good news? The incredibly good news is that we have, now watch this, I'm turning this off, and now I'm plugging this back in. So those aren't on at the same time, like that, okay? So now, what's the incredibly good news? I am actually talking, excuse me, I dropped something, okay. I'm actually talking to the OLED and the BMP 180. And so that is, I think, really, really good news. Okay, so now what do we need to do now? Now we need to get that base, right? We need to get that base, we need to measure that base value, okay? Now up here, remember we said that, I know you guys hate it when I don't show you what I'm looking at. Okay, remember we said, do we have the base yet? No, we don't, because we haven't measured that base pressure. So bool have base is false when the program starts. So we come down here to the void loop, okay? And now this is where things are going to change a little bit. Okay, this is where things are going to change a little bit. And so we prompted them. In fact, all this BP stuff, I need to take this out, okay, from all of this, because we're not doing this now based on pressing go. We're pressing enter on the serial monitor like the earlier program. On this one, we're going to do it based on the go button. And so what do I need to do? I'm going to do a Control T just to kind of line things up a little better. And so then I'm going to say my but val is equal to digital read. Digital read of what? The butt pin. Okay, so I'm looking what's going on with my button, okay? And I want that lined up there. Control T will line things up for you quite nicely. Okay, so I've read that. Now, if but val equal 1, that means this time through the loop the button is not pressed. And but val old equal 0. If those two things are true, what does it mean? It means last time through the button was pressed, and this time through the button was released, and so now I have a full button press. Okay, what do I do with that little tidbit of information? Well, what I need to do is I need to go in and I need to read the base pressure. Okay, I need to read the base pressure. Now I am thinking here. Let me think. Okay, yeah, so you'll understand why I do this in a minute. All right, but what I've got to do now is I'm going to be inside this if statement. Okay, I'm going to be inside of this if statement. And so I'm going to go ahead and say that the base pressure, I'm going to initialize that. Do I need to initialize that? I don't think I do. Okay, so let's just leave that off for right now. So what do I want to do? If I press that button, I need to measure. Okay, if I press that button, I need to measure the base pressure. Okay, so what I'm going to say is I'm going to say base pressure is going to be equal to what? BP dot read pressure, like that, open close, and our semicolon. And guys, the reason I was kind of glitching there for a second, there's some enhancements we're going to put later on, but the first time I just want to do it as simple as possible. We put it at base, we press the button, and then it sits and it starts measuring and displaying the height, measuring pressure, and then calculating and displaying the height. And some of the other stuff will come in a minute and add some fancier stuff too. Okay, now that we've done that, what do I need to do? Now, do I have the base measurement? Have base. I just measured the base pressure, so have base becomes true. And why do we do that? So every time through the loop, it doesn't come back down in here. Only when I press the button does it get a base value. Okay, a base pressure value. So now that has become true. And then very important and oftentimes forgotten is but val old is equal to now but val. Next time through the loop, but val old is this time through the loop but val. Okay, so now we've got that taken care of. And if you forget to do that, you're going to have a lot of difficulty. Okay. Now, okay, so if have base, let's see, do I need to put that up here? Okay, so now we're only going to do this if we've gotten our base pressure. We don't want to be sitting there reading and displaying if we haven't measured our base pressure yet. Okay, and so what we're going to do here is we are going to say if have base equal true, then we're going to want to do most of our program. So I'm going to open this, and then I'm going to take that out, and then I'm going to come all the way down here, and now I'm going to close my if statement. Okay, so this closes the if statement, and this closes the void loop. So what this is saying is, while it's waiting for a button push, it shouldn't be in there calculating heights because you haven't put it at the base location and pressed the button yet. And so I only come in and do my main work if you have actually got yourself a base pressure. Okay, does that make sense? So it's going to sit and loop and jump over all of this until you give it a base pressure. And then once you have a base pressure, then it's just going to run until you press the button again. If you press the button again, then it will go out and get a new base pressure. So you got to get these kind of different modes of the program playing nicely together. Okay, so now what am I going to do? Okay, so now inside of this, I'm going to calculate height. Now is find height of, and I got to pass find height base pressure. And then down here, find height goes through all this equation, and it returns the answer in feet. Okay, it returns the answer in feet. Now, I do a bunch of printing here, and let's leave that print stuff in there, even though no, let's not. We can't leave that in there. We're going to have to take all that out. All right. Like that. Okay, that's all taken out. So now what do I do? Let's see. So here, if have base is true, that means I've gotten my base pressure. What am I going to do? I'm going to measure height now, and then I'm going to apply my low pass filter. Explained this ad nauseum last week, and then I am going to have a height. All right. Now, what I am going to do now is, what can I do with that height? Well, I always like to start by clear display, because we were monkeying with the display, so I want to clear it. Okay, and then I want to OLED set cursor to column 0, row 12, like that. Give it a little space up there, like that. And then I want to OLED dot set text color again to white, like that. Okay. And then OLED dot set text size, set it to 1 again. Okay, that all looks good. All right, so I've got it all set up. Now, what do I want to do? I'm just going to do the simplest thing possible. And the simplest thing possible would be OLED.println. And then what do I want? I want height. And that height is the filtered value. Okay? Now, I'm just looking and making sure. So I'm just going to print line height. That's all I'm going to do. Just print line height. And then I am going to run it, and then it'll clear it the next time through. And then I think what I'm going to need to do is do an OLED dot display like that. Okay, and then we're going to leave that delay of 10 in there. Let's just run this thing and see if that is going to work. All right. With a little luck, that'll give us the height on the screen. Okay. Looks like it's running. It's downloading. Let's let it get downloaded. Okay. And now what am I going to do? We will come back over here. Okay, where you can see. Now, I'm going to unplug this, and then I'm going to come here, and I'm going to turn this on. And now I'm looking at the screen, and look at that. Place the deluxe height-o-matic at the base location and press go. So now let's see if something happens if I press go. Boom, look at that. Now this is saying that I'm at minus 2 feet, minus 3 feet, minus 2 feet, minus 3 feet. But if I go up, if I take this up, then it is saying that it is 1 foot. And then if I put it down here, it is saying that it's minus 5 feet. So you see, this is going up and down. Now, what does this mean? This means probably, like it's measuring this as minus 3. That means probably it did, like when it's like this, it didn't get a really good measurement of pressure for the base pressure, so everything is biased down a little bit. Let's see if we can do it again. Okay, I press it again, and now it's 0, 0. That's looking a little better. Plus 1 foot, back to 0 foot. And I guess you can't see that, can you? Let's see if I can get you a better view. Sometimes you just have to take my word for it. All right, what's one thing that you see? We've got to have something bigger than that for us to be able to see it. So we'll come back over here. We'll come back over here, and we're going to give that a size where we're going to print the height here. We're going to give that a size of 3 just to see what happens, okay? Because I think, who's your friend? The USB cable. Turn that off. Plug the USB cable in. Download it again. Man, I'm almost done with my coffee. Too bad I can't order up a coffee like a butler or something. Oh, Jeeves, please bring me my coffee. Okay. All right, so now we're going to look at this. And we'll look at it where you can see it better, which was this view. So what do? We're going to unplug this. All right, then we're going to turn this on. All right, what does it say? It says place it at the base and press the button. We press the button. All right, look at that. Okay, it's off by a foot. It's off by a foot, but now if I come up here, it is saying that it is 1.5 feet. Okay, 1.5 feet. And if I put it on the floor, it is saying that it's minus 4 feet, and I did lose my glasses. Okay, and then if we come back up here, it goes to -1, -2, -1, -2. Okay, now what is the good thing? The good thing is that we have a low-pass filter on here. Did we put the low-pass filter on here? Yes, we have the low-pass filter on here. And so that is kind of giving me a filtered value. It's just when you're looking to a hundredth of a foot, you do see a little bit of noise in there. I guess we could change that parameter to make this a little bit more stable, but let's leave it there for right now. Okay, let's leave it there for right now. But one thing that I don't like about this is I don't think in terms, and we'll put some labels on here because we're gonna be dressing this thing up as we go. But I think what I can say at this point is it's working. Okay, yeah, I'm getting a positive number. I'm getting like a positive 2 feet there. And so that is within a foot or two, this thing is working. But what do we not like? The first thing that I don't like is I do not think in terms of 0.3 feet or 0.5 feet. What do I think in terms of feet and inches? Okay, feet and inches. So let's see if we can come in and kind of make this thing where it doesn't read decimal feet, but it reads so many feet and then decimal inches. Well, if we're going to do that, what I'm going to need to do is here where I've got these variables that you can't see, but I caught it pretty quickly this time. Here where we're setting up these variables for our height and so forth. So what we know is that height is the filtered full decimal value. But what I want is I want to have feet. But I want feet like 1, 2, 3, 4. So I'm going to make that an int. Now, if I said feet equal height, if height was 2.37 and I said feet equals height, feet would become 2 because feet is an integer and it ignores those other things. It doesn't round, it just chops off the decimal part. So 2.99 feet would come over as 2 feet. Okay, so we're going to set up the feet. And now also, like if it's 2.47 feet, I don't want to ignore that 0.47 feet. So I'm also going to want inches. Okay, and then I am going to make that an int. I'm going to make that an inches, feet and inches. Now, why did I make inches an int? Because I could say it's 3 feet, 2.54 inches. Well, if you think that you can measure 0.54 inches by measuring the weight of a column of air between your location and 200 miles up, you are sorely confusing yourself. So I think it would be a fool's game to try to report fractions of an inch. Okay, so I'm not going to do that, but I am going to give feet and inches. Okay, so now what do we need to do down here? At this point, I have a height. Okay, at this point, I have a height. What am I going to do with it? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that the feet now is equal to height. All right, now what that is going to do is that's going to take down 2.34 down to 2, or 2.88 down to 2. But I don't want to ignore our friend the inches, and so the inches are going to be equal to the height, which would be like, say, 2.75 minus the feet, which would be 2. So now I have 2.75 minus 2, I've got 0.75 of a foot. Well, 0.75 of a foot, if I want to make that inches, I have to multiply by 12, okay? And then I understand that because inches is an integer, it's going to round that to the nearest inch. Does that make sense? So now I have feet and I have inches. Now here, what I want to do is, instead of OLED print line of height, I want to print what? Feet. And I don't want to go to the new line. I want to go across this line. So I do a print. Now OLED dot print. And now I'm going to print the label. What? It's going to be a space FT period space. Okay. All right, let's see. Okay, so there, that is the foot part. But what do we also want? Let's do an OLED dot print, OLED dot print, and then we're going to print inches. And then we're going to do an OLED dot, wait for it, print ln. This time we'll go to the new line because that top line is going to have inches and that top line is going to have it's going to have feet in inches. So then here we need to tell it that that's inch, IN, like that. I think I'll do an uppercase IN like that. Okay, well, if I'm going to do that, I can't slight that. That'll be foot and inches. All right, like that. Okay, so we made that a 3. Okay, now what we want to do is we want to let them know that they can reset their base location if they want to. So we're going to go up here, and all of this nonsense from our thing here, we're going to get and copy it. And so after the display, after it displays it on the first line, now on the rest of the screen, we're going to prompt it. On the rest of the screen, we are going to prompt it that it can go back to another base location. You can run the thing again, set another base location. And then after all of that, we are going to what? We are going to OLED display. Now, I will be honest with you, I don't know if this is all going to fit on the screen, so we might have to adjust this a little bit. But let's go ahead and try to run it. What is this before OLED? What is this? Somewhere, somehow, I missed a semicolon. I'll tell you, all of this, I really hate this new IDE. Okay, what is that? I had a glitch in the matrix there somehow. All right, so height minus feet times 12, and then OLED clear display. So let's run this thing. I think it's going to compile this time. What do you think? that's looking good. Yep, and it is downloading. All right. Now let's come over here to this view. All right, and so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to unplug that, and then I am going to turn this on. And then what we see that it says to place the deluxe Heidomat at its base location and press go. And we've done that. Oh. I think size 3 was a tad bit too large. So we'll come back over here. I am going to remain optimistic. I am going to try to make it a 2 because I want that readable. Okay, but then what we are going to want to do is after that nonsense, we are going to want to, before we come here, we're going to need to make all this very small. Okay, I want the feet in inches readable, but then the little prompt that you can get a new base pressure, I'm going to make that 1. Now let's see if this will work. So remember what we need to do. We need to turn this off, and then we need to plug this in. Okay, and now we are going to download our code. Man, I am desperately low on coffee. Okay, so the code is downloading. You can take my word for it. And it did it without an error. And so it's all happy. So now it's got the new code. We'll come over here and we'll turn this on and let's see what happens. So far, so good. Let's press this and see what happens. Oh man, that still doesn't quite fit. And then we go down too far. Okay, I know what I'm going to do. So let's come back over here. I'm not giving up. I'm not giving up on life. I'm going to take this period out here, and then I'm going to take this period out, and then I'm going to see if that will stay on the first line. So let's go run it. Okay, so that's done. We'll unplug it. We'll turn this on. We get our happy little prompt. We come here. Okay. That looks good, but not really. So it kind of depends. When you get the minus and the minus, it sends you to the new line. And then you also know that foot could be a really big number. And so what am I going to have to do? Well, I could try to get fancy, but I am afraid that I'm going to have to give up on life. I'm going to have to admit defeat, and I'm going to have to go to 1 for right now. What in my mind I'm thinking is if I put an apostrophe for feet and a quote for inches, then I could take 4 characters and make them two characters. But then the problem with that is I don't know how to put a quote in a quote. I would have to look that up. So we're just gonna go with it here. Okay, so we're gonna come over here. We're gonna turn it off. We're gonna plug it back in, and now we're gonna download it. Okay, there it is. So we will change our view back over here to where you can see what's going on, and we're going to turn it on right there. We get our happy little greeting. I will put that there, and look at that. 0 feet, 1 inch, minus 5 inches. So you see, we're not even registering a foot error. We are registering inch errors. And then I'm going to take this, and pardon me while I stand up. Okay. And I am reading like 4 foot. I am reading 4 foot 6 inches, and that's pretty good. 4 foot 6 inches would be about, remember it's from the desktop, and then I put it on the ground, and I am measuring on the ground. I am measuring minus 2 foot 6 inches. So that is definitely getting within a couple of feet error. And then when I come back to home base, I am reading home base very, very well, less than a foot error. Now, what does that mean? Okay, first of all, remember that we put our low pass filter in here, right? We put our low pass filter in right here, and that's taking a lot of noise out of our reading, where we're getting accurate feet, and we're getting, the inch dropping, jumping around a little bit. The inch is jumping around a little bit, but we're getting pretty accurate on the feet. But now what I want you to see is, if I come back over here to what you can see here, okay, if I press the reset button again, let me press the reset button. Now, darn it, that's doing pretty well as well. But it just depends if you get lucky. Now remember, in our normal measurement for height, we are filtering out the noise. But when we measure the base pressure, we're doing how many measurements? 1. And if we get it lucky where it's about where it's supposed to be, we'll not have a big offset at our 0 level. But if we get a high or a low value, then while we're sitting here, it's going to be reading something that could be a foot or 2 off. So what would be good? Sort of like we did the low pass filter, over on the active data that we're reading. It would be good, instead of making one base pressure measurement, if we made a whole bunch and then averaged them. Okay, let's make a whole bunch and then average them. And then we'll get better 0 values. Now, as luck would have it, the few times that I tried this, we got lucky, and it was always under a foot error when we were at our base location. But I saw it sometimes when it was a lot more than that. So what do we want to do? We want to average. That base value. Okay, so what am I going to do? I'm going to come over here where we did the base pressure. Okay, remember where we did the base pressure? Well, what I'm going to do is, if I'm going to average it, I don't know what I'd gotten before, right? So I better come in and I better set it to 0 before I measure it. So base pressure is going to be equal to 0. And let's see if there's anything else that I need to do there. Okay, so the base pressure, because what I'm going to say is base pressure plus something, and I'm going to be summing up the base pressures and then finding the average. So the base pressure, I got to empty my bucket. I've got to set it to 0. And now what I want to do is OLED.clear display, like that. Okay, now what do I want to do? OLED.set cursor 0,12. I just find that to be a convenient place to start it. And OLED.set text size, make that 1. 1 would be a good one. 10 would probably be a little large. OLED.set color, make that white. I probably should just copied and paste this from somewhere below, but we're almost done there. And now what I'm going to do is OLED.print ln, and what I'm going to print is weight, like that, weight. All right, and then I'm going to put the dots like that. Okay, so it's going to prompt you to go to the base location and press the button. Then when you press the button, it's going to tell you to wait, because it's going to make a bunch of measurements and then average them. And so what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to say 4, and I'm going to go ahead and declare my variable int. I is going to be equal to 1, so my index is going to be 1, and I want to loop as long as I is less than or equal to 1,000, and then I'm going to want to say I is equal to I plus 1, I plus 1, like that. And so I got a little for loop going here. Remember, I made my base pressure 0, so now I'm going to say base pressure is equal to base pressure plus BP dot BP P dot read pressure, like that. Okay, so now that is going to give me the sum. That is going to sum up. Man, I've kind of lost track of. Okay, that looks right. This is closing my for loop. And then this is closing the if, I believe. I think my brackets are right. I think my brackets are right. My curly brackets are right. Okay, so now base pressure is base pressure plus another measurement. And then what the real base pressure is going to be is it is going to be the base pressure divided by how many readings I took, which was 1,000. Okay, so this is going to average the base pressure over 1,000 measurements, and that should get it closer to 0. And hopefully that will be reducing your error. That will be reducing your offset error because you have a more pristine base pressure that is averaged out that variation. Does that make sense? I hope it does. Okay, so let's see here. Maybe I'll come back over here to this view. And then what we're going to do is that is all set up. That's off. We are going to download our code. What? You guys probably saw it. It was a rookie mistake here. Read pressure. Open, close parentheses. Let's see. I think that'll like that better. So now let's try this. What? Set color. Oh, set text color. And we go again. It's going to work this time. Okay, I think it's going to work. So let's come back over here. Now, okay, it's downloaded, so I will unplug this. I will turn this on. And now it'll take a little while to make 1,000 measurements. So we're going to press the go button. I didn't press it deliberately enough. What is that? It is not getting my button push. Okay, I'm going to turn this off, and then I'm going to turn it on. There it goes. Wow, why is it not? It's not reading that button push. I wonder if my battery is running down. I'm going to plug it in over here, and that's okay because then I'm just giving a little more juice to the system. So let's see. Okay, and then let's come in here. It is not reading my button push. It looks so right. I didn't change anything with that. Okay, let's come back over and look at the code. This is perplexing because you wouldn't think that I did anything. Maybe I messed up my bracket. So I say if button old, if I get a button press, maybe we'll try downloading the code again. You see, I never got that weight for 1,000 measurements. For I is equal to 1. For int I is equal to 1. I is less than or equal to 1,000. I is equal to I plus 1. Base pressure is base pressure plus the read. And then the base pressure is equal to base pressure divided by 1,000. Have base is equal to true. Wow, that sure looks right to me. Okay, so now let's come over here. So it's wanting this. I come in, I press the button. And it is not, let's see here. Maybe I have, okay. Now look, this is really an insidious error. This is a really terrible error. What did I do? I told it to print weight, but I never got the weight. I never got that. Why? Because we didn't OLED dot display. Man, did you see what a terrible I told you that was a bad mistake. So now what we're going to do is we are going to try it again. So I'm going to put this in, and now we are going to download it. That looks like it's going to run, so I'll come back over here. Now this time when I press the button, I want to see it tell me wait, because it'll take a few seconds to make 1,000 measurements. So I'm going to come in, and now I'm going to unplug this. I'm going to power it from here, so you see we're completely mobile. Okay, I'm going to press that, and boom, wait. Okay, what is it doing? It's trying to get us a good base pressure. It is trying to take 1,000 measurements and average them, and then give me a really good base pressure. All right, now that might take what, 15, 20, 25 seconds. Now, at some point we get a little worried that why isn't it going to the next part of the program? But let's be patient. Let's take one of our last sips of coffee. Maybe 1,000 was too aggressive. There it is. Okay, look at that. So we are getting a 1 foot, 2 foot, 3 foot, 2 foot. Okay, so let me try 100. All right, let me try 100, and then I'll explain why. Okay, 100, and then we would divide by 100. So let's try that. Guys, this is being a little obsessive compulsive, because I'm trying to, in a column of air that's 200 miles long, trying to improve the accuracy to better than a foot. And maybe that's a little bit more than what you can really do. But let's try this with 100, and then let's see if we get a little better. Because the kind of surprising thing was it was better before we averaged, but that was just a freak accident. It'll always be better if you average, kind of day in and day out. So you really want to be doing this averaging. Okay, so we've got the program in it. We're going to take this. This time it shouldn't take so long this time. Okay, because we're only doing 100. It wants us to press. We press. It tells us to wait. Okay, look at that. 3 inches, 4 inches, 3 inches, 4 inches. So the error is way less because we average. Then when I come up, I've got about 3 feet, which is good. And I come down, and I have minus 4 feet. Okay, that looks good. And then I come back up here, and I have got 0 foot, 1 foot. So again, within a foot or two, this thing is working. Now you can see that I'm not tethered, that this thing is completely free to move around now. This thing is completely free to move around now. But how I am tethered is if I run up and run around to do this, like my house is 3 stories. So if I go to the ground floor and go up to the 3rd floor, then what you're going to see is you're not going to see anything because I can't take the camera with me. But what you can do now is you can take yours and you can go walk around the house with it. Okay, guys. I think that this is a pretty cool little project. I think this is a pretty cool little project because we have made from scratch a mobile, untethered to the desktop, standalone, self-powering altimeter. Okay, we have made our own altimeter. And I think that's pretty neat. I hope you guys enjoyed that. All right, now let's think about something else. Let's think about the homework assignment. Let's think about the homework assignment, that one thing you can do with this. Now, I will warn you, if you sit and let this thing run overnight, just at its base location, if you come in tomorrow, you might be at 230 feet. Why? Because we are assuming that in the time frame that we're making these measurements, that the weather doesn't change. But if you come in tomorrow and you left it running all night, the weather has changed, and this will interpret that as a change in altitude. There's no way around that. With these barometric pressure and altimeters, you either assume that you're at a given height and then look at changes in the weather, or you assume that the weather isn't changing and then any change is due to a change in height. So there's no way to untangle those two different things. But what you can also do with this, so the next thing that we want to do with this, and this will be your homework assignment, is we want you to go back and measure pressure. We're going to forget about this. This project is done. We've got an altimeter. But now we want to look at the other thing that's kind of cool, and that is to look at barometric pressure as part of the weather. Now, what does that mean? If you have barometric pressure that you're measuring, if your pressure is dropping, then that sucks storms in and sucks inclement weather in. If your pressure is increasing, it pushes out the problems and it brings calm and stability, fair weather, clear weather. So if you sit and your barometric pressure is going up, you're expecting clear weather. If you sit and your barometric pressure is dropping, you're expecting storms to come in. So this is your homework assignment, okay? Now, remember, this little device reports in pascals, and in lesson number 55, I think it was in the last couple of lessons, I showed you, maybe it was lesson number 54, I showed you how you can convert to the various units of barometric pressure. Now, us as scientists, we like to work in pascals. Okay, pascals is a very nice unit of measure, and this thing reports in pascals. All right, it reports in pascals. That's good. But the weathermen go back to this archaic system of 150 years ago, which is either inches of mercury, which is like inches of Hg, or it is millimeters of Hg for those of you who are on the metric system. So since that's what the weatherman uses, what your assignment is now, don't calculate height. What you're going to do now is you're going to let this thing run, and you're going to look at barometric pressure. Now you're going to be reading it in pascals, but you've got to convert that to either inches of mercury, or you have to convert it to millimeters of mercury. And then you display that on your screen, and you have a little barometric weather device, okay? Then I want you to go to your local, wherever you get your weather on your computer, like Microsoft Weather, or wherever you get your weather, Apple Weather, wherever you get it. I want you to look at your measured pressure in inches of mercury or in millimeters of mercury, and then I want you to compare that to the real-time number that is being reported by the weatherman, and then how accurate or how close does what you do match with the weatherman. And then if there's a discrepancy, what your homework assignment is to tell me why those numbers are kind of far off. If they're kind of far off, you have to think through it and say, why is your number not matching what the weatherman says it is? So you have to speculate. And then you make a video, you show your device working, you post it, you leave a link back to this video, and then let's see if we can start moving a new direction. We've got our altimeter. But what are we going to do now? We are going to make a little weather station starting with barometric pressure. Okay, so that is your homework assignment for next week. And guys, I hope you are having as much fun taking this class as I am making it. As always, I want to give a shout out to you guys who are standing with me on Patreon. It is the Patreon support that enables me to continue to produce new, fresh content week after week. Thank you guys for standing with me. You can also help this channel by leaving a thumbs up on the video or leaving a comment down below. Either one of those will help me with the YouTube juice. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. When you do, ring that bell so you'll get notification when future lessons drop. And as always, share this video with other people because the world needs more people thinking like an engineer and fewer people sitting around watching silly cat videos. Paul McWhorter, TopTechBoy.com. I will talk to you guys later.